right, so today we are doing 1.1c, creating and analyzing residual plots with calculator. Yesterday we did everything with just standard calculator, right? Today's imperative, we will be using an actual calculator, okay? So you should have picked up your notes out of your basket and you should have grabbed a calculator. Now, we're going to analyze the residual plot. A residual plot literally just means after you found the residual, you're plotting them on a graph. And then you're analyzing their relationship. So on your paper, there are some blanks you're going to need to fill in. It says, shows the residuals. So the first blank that you're filling in is residuals. Do we see that blank?
Yes.
The residuals for all points in a given data. Okay, so that's what a residual plot, it just shows all of the residual plots. Okay, if majority of the points are close to the x-axis, this means the regression model is a good model. Okay, that means it's a good model. Okay, if all points are on the x-axis, the regression model is a perfect model. Do we see that? All right, so looking at this residual plot we have here, does the model seem to be good? Not really, right? Majority of our points are not on or close to the x-axis. Do we see that? We have them all over the place. So whatever it's representing is not a good model. Does that make sense? Okay, if it's above, if you have a positive residual, that means it's an overestimate, which was hopefully your takeaway from yesterday. If you have a negative residual, that means you have an underestimate. In my mind, I think those may be compound words, but I'm not sure, so I wrote them separately. If you're an English person and that's your strong suit, don't judge me. I just wasn't sure if they are compound or separate words, so I played it safe. Okay? There's no graph. I'm just reminding from your takeaway from yesterday. Okay? All right, questions about the residual plot. All right. Now, you have these steps, and we're going to follow these steps. It looks like a lot, but it's really not. You got this. I did make an error, and I need you guys to help fix that error, okay? Where it says step 2, press stat. You're going to need to insert in here arrow to calc, because I forgot to write that part. Okay? So just do a little insert in there. We're going to arrow to calc because that's part of the step that is missing. I'm human. Sorry. Okay. All right. So we're going to follow all of these steps. Now, I'm going to keep the steps on the board, but you're going to turn over your paper. Okay. And there's your data points. So I'm keeping the steps on the board, but you're turning over your paper. So on the back of your paper, you should have this. Yes. Okay. And we're going to follow the steps using this data set. Got it? All right. So step 0 before we start anything with a calculator, what should we do? Clear. And how do I clear? Perfect. Second plus 7, 1, 2. Okay. Everything's magically gone and reset, right? All right. So now we're going to start with step 1. Step 1 is where we input our data. How do we input data into the calculator? Stat and editor, right? So I'm going to press stat underneath the delete button, and I'm going to press 1 for edit. And I'm going to take this time to input all of my x's into L1 and all of my y's into L2. Cool? So that's what we're doing now, putting all of our x's into L1, all of our y's into L2. All right, so I'm going to go back to the steps, and here we go. I went up too far. Uh-oh. There we go. Okay. Y'all are moving a little faster than me. I'm coming. All right. Can I get thumbs up if we have all inputted our values into our table? Okay. That table's good. Half that table's good. Half, or 3/4. This table's good. Oh, 2/3. All right, there we go. So we've input our values. Any questions about inputting data into the calculator? We're safe? All right, step 2 is we're going to create our regression model, okay? So on your paper, it says find the regression equation to model this, right? So we're going to find our regression model. To find our regression model, we're going to press stat, arrow over to calc, and then 4 for linear regression. And we're going to write it down, round to the nearest thousandth whenever necessary. Got it? 4. Okay, so we're from the table, from our editor, we're pressing, what does it say? Stat, arrow over to calc, and we're pressing 4 lin reg. So stat, calc, do you see where it says 4 lin reg? Okay, on mine, I just have to press enter. On yours, you have to scroll down to calculate. I just have to press enter. You have to scroll down to calculate and then press enter. Okay, do you see it? So you should have, after you scroll down to calculate, your screen should now match my screen. Show your table mates that, check everyone, do a peer check. Yeah. Okay, if they don't have it, you gotta scroll down to calculate. All right, so we're gonna write it down. So we're writing down, what are we writing down? So our equation is y equals 4/10 x plus 1 and 9/10. Do we see that? I plugged in A for A, B for B. Yes. No one's like, I don't know where you got that from.
Oh yeah, I got it.
All right.
Oh.
All right, good. Okay, now we're gonna make our scatter plot. So to do our scatter plot, this is a little chunky of a step, okay? So press y equals. Do we all see y equals? We're gonna press y equals. In y equals, we're gonna input our equation. What did we say our equation was? 0.4x plus 1.9. Okay, all we've done so far is the first sentence of step 3. Yeah?
Yes.
Anyone's done anything else different or weird?
No.
Okay, now we're going to read the second sentence. What does the second sentence tell us to do? Then arrow up to plot 1, press enter to turn on, and arrow down to make sure it's selected. So we're going to arrow up to plot 1, press enter, and we're going to arrow down to make sure that it's selected. Is it selected? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so when I do this, I now can press graph, and I should be able to see my points and my scatter points. Are we ready to press graph?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, look at that. Okay. It says to create the scatter plot and analyze. What do you notice about our scatter plot? What are they doing? They're in line. Remember when we're describing a scatter plot, we're saying whether it's positive, negative, or constant. What is our data here? It's positive because it's going up. It's an increase from left to right. So after analyzing what we have, we're going to write this is a positive and clearly linear situation, right? Okay, so it looks like a positive linear situation, which makes sense for our regression model, right? Okay. How do you feel about putting in your scatter plot and your equation? Decent? Okay, now we're gonna do our residual. Okay. So in order to plot our residual on step 4, it says we're gonna do second y equals. No matter where you are, you're just gonna press second y equals. And we're gonna go to plot 2. Do you see where it says plot 2? We're gonna go to plot 2. And we're gonna turn it on. Just hit second y. Okay. Now we want our residual. To show that it's the residual on step 5, it says I'm going to press down arrow to go to the Y list. So I'm going to press the down arrow to go to the Y list. Now that I've gone down to that, I'm going to press second stat and I'm going to scroll down till I see RESID, which stands for residual. So we're going to press, ready? Second stat, and I'm going to scroll until I see residual, RESID. Once I see that, then it tells me to press what? Enter. On your screen, you can't just press 7. You got to scroll a little bit more. I tried to put a screenshot. So it should have looked like this. And I'm going to press enter. And now it should say RESID.
That's not one.
Okay?
You put that under the Y.
Under the Y list. So now, once we're here, once here, it says in order to graph this, we're going to need to make sure that it's in a good window, a stat window. So we're going to press zoom 9. Do you see that? We don't press graph from here. We're going to press zoom 9. So zoom 9. And do I see everything in my window? And the beauty of yours is that you actually have color, right? So mine is not in color. But it is what it is, guys. Okay, good old faithful. It's as good as it's gonna get. Okay. All right. So looking at our residual points are on the x-axis. So what does this mean? It's a perfect model, right? So looking at this, our residuals are on the x-axis, which makes this a perfect model. It's a perfect model. So it says graph and describe your residual. So when I graphed it, my description is all residual points are on x-axis. So therefore it is perfect. Okay, it's a perfect model. And that's how you analyze your scatter plot and your residual values. Okay, what that means is that if I was to plug in and subtract, it would equal 0 the entire time. Does that make sense? All right.
Choose something else. I did the Zoom stand.
You didn't use Zoom 9.
Well, I did.
Oh, I don't know. All right. All right. So what you're going to do at your table, I'm going to pass out a paper and it's going to have data sets 2, 3, 4, and 5 on it. Okay. Data set 2, you're going to do as your table, complete it together, talk about it. And then data sets 3, 4, and 5, you're going to work on independently today in the beginning of class tomorrow. Okay. This has to be done in class. I'm going to give you a paper. This has to be done in class because do we have access to this calculator outside of class?
No.
Not yet. Eventually you will, but all right. Eventually they're supposed to push it out onto your Chromebook. So eventually you will have the TI-84 on your Chromebook. Something happened. It's just taking a little longer to get there. It is still, your Inspires are still on there?